Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a thriller sci-fi from 2024 titled Survive. The film opens with a family of 4 cruising. The mother of the family, Julia, checks up on her family and goes for a swim without telling anyone. While her husband, Tom, teaches their son, Ben, how to throw the fishing hook, Julia gets caught in the unusual currents that start to drown her. He spots her drowning and immediately starts the boat. He tells the kids to bring it closer to Julia while he jumps in the sea to save her. Once he brings Julia on the yacht, he asks his family to notify the others before swimming from now on.
Now listen, everyone. I've already told you, but let me say this again. When you go swimming, you tell the others first. Okay?
A little while later, Tom joins Julia after she showers and decides to lock the kids outside to make love with her. At night, the family celebrates Ben's 13th birthday.
Happy birthday to you and many more.
Hey, my love.
After giving the boy gifts, they gather for a group picture, during which Cassie's boyfriend Video calls her on her laptop. She tries to get away from her family for privacy reasons, but Ben follows her till the last minute. She takes the laptop to the deck, where she updates Adam about her trip, and he talks about inviting her to a party, during which Cassie spots an unusual thunderstorm behind Adam. Before she can ask Adam more about it, their connection breaks. She walks back inside to seek help from her father, but it doesn't work out. Simultaneously, they hear strange sounds coming from the sea, so they walk out on the deck to see what's going on. Tom gets relieved to see whales migrating from the area their yacht is present, and blabs random facts about why and when whales feel the need to migrate. Unfortunately, the whales graze their yacht from underneath during their migration. Tom puts on his scuba glasses to dive in the water and personally check if the boat has taken any damage from the incident. After a few minutes of inspection, he comes back to the surface with a very deep cut on his shoulder. The family brings him inside, where Julia stitches his wound. Tom explains that he got scared by an enormous yet hard-to-explain presence behind him, during which his shoulder got hit by their ship's propeller. He also delivers the bad news about one of their propellers getting shot because of the whales. Cassie grows worried about Adam, her boyfriend, and tries to get signals on her phone. In a desperate attempt, she even gets to the roof for signals, but she only disappoints herself. When she returns inside, she is scared by Ben, who has his Medusa mask on. Inside, Julia tries to make contact for their rescue on the radio, but the poor signals make it impossible to understand what the other person on the line is saying. Now stuck in the middle of the ocean, Cassie lies down in her bed in despair, while Tom keeps Julia hopeful about a rescue since they are on a boating route. Suddenly, their navigator picks up a strange signal, which causes the family to walk outside and witness meteors showering down in the distance. It doesn't take longer for the meteors to start falling near the boat.
Dad, what is that?
I have no idea.
So the family rushes back inside and starts closing down all the windows. The recent meteor fall near their yacht causes weird currents in the ocean, which pushes the boat around. When things start falling around in the boat, Tom helps his kids put on life jackets. The power also goes out, so Tom goes to fix that instead of saving himself. A strange frequency in the air causes Julia to bleed through her nose, Cassie to puke non-stop, and Tom to bleed through his ears. The next morning, the family wakes up with everyone intact. They realize their boat has sinked, even after so many punctures, so they walk out on the deck to unveil the mystery. They are shook to their core when they see the entire ocean drained to its last drop, and their boat on top of a mountain. While Tom studies to surface with his compass, Ben finds crabs and messes with Tom. When Cassie asks for an explanation, Tom unravels that the compass is showing the poles have switched themselves, which hasn't happened within the last 700,000 years. He worries that it's not possible, but their view of the dried-out sea says otherwise. While he explains that the South Pole has become north and north has become south, he also figures that the ocean has routed towards the land, which is the only sensible explanation to what they're witnessing. Cassie becomes mad to hear this and goes inside the rusty boat, thinking of what might have happened to Adam. Julia goes after her to console her, but it doesn't help her at all. As she continues to stare at Adam's pictures on her phone, Julia starts collecting the scattered tin food in one place. Ben ties all of his birthday balloons and flies them in the air like a kite, explaining to his parents he's signaling for help in case there are other survivors out there. Later, Tom fixes the radio and attempts to come in contact with the land. Surprisingly, he gets connected with a submarine captain who has also gone through the same tragedy as them. He claims that he was in the sea when the poles switched and is now stuck on dry land after the water moved to the land. He also enlightens the family about the poles shifting back to being normal within a week, which will cause huge tides in the sea.
Have you come into contact with any other survivors?
No.
Most communication systems are down.
Anyway, there are seismic movements which indicate that the poles are going to reverse again and the sea could return.
When?
According to my instruments, no more than a week.
He advises them to find an elevated spot to save themselves from the wrath of the sea once it returns. But instead, Tom begs him to give shelter to his kids in his submarine, since it sounds more safe. The captain refuses at first, saying the submarine doesn't have enough space. But when Tom bribes him with an anything-ask favor, he agrees to help the kids. Tom also figures out his exact coordinates and calculates it will take then 2 to 3 days to get to the submarine. They decide to make the journey the next morning and begin packing their food. The next morning, Tom spots an ambiguous man walking towards them with his dog. Like the philanthropist he is, he approaches the man for help. While Julia goes after him out of concerns, Tom offers the man medical assistance by his wife and also gives him a bottle of water. Instead of thanking Tom, he knocks him out with the water bottle. Julia runs towards them, but the man kills Tom with his sharp spear. She runs back inside the boat, but the man throws his spear at her, which pierces through her shoulder. She successfully runs inside and hides her kids. She gives Cassie a flare gun and advises her to use it in the hour of need only. Before the man enters the boat, Julia hides herself in the bathroom and tends to her wound. The man finds a can of beans, which he gobbles down immediately, indicating he's only a starved survivor of the human extinction, likewise the family. The man hears Julia from the bathroom, but before he gets to her, Julia manages to escape through a punctured hole and hide under the boat. Unfortunately, the ravaged man's dog sees Julia and attacks her. She uses her knife to kill the dog and protect herself. When the man sees his dead dog, he gets emotional and steps out to find Julia, but she approaches the boat from another side and goes back inside. Unfortunately, the homeless man strikes her off guard and starts beating her relentlessly. Cassie has a hard time witnessing this from her hiding spot, so she shoots the man with her flare gun, which doesn't damage the man, but surely starts a fire on the boat. Julia takes the kids and tries to escape from there, but the homeless man tries to pull Julia back. She kicks him and runs outside, where the family cries over Tom's corpse. When they realize the man has rescued himself and is coming towards them, Julia pushes her kids to run away. They momentarily hide in the narrow gap between two mountains, where Cassie offers Ben some water, but he's too traumatized and blaming himself for Tom's death by flying balloons outside. Once done looking at the map, Julia intensely tells Ben to forget that it was ever his fault. Cassie spots the creepy man coming after them, so they run away from there. After hours of walking, they come across a land where Ben finds a dead baby shark in a small water puddle. Julia uses binoculars to see the man still following them, so she tells the kids to keep running. They slide from a tall peak and end up in an area where some chemical drums have contaminated what little is left of water there. They hide behind a giant boulder, where Ben becomes dehydrated. They give him the last sip of water, which is of no help sadly. Cassie analyzes the situation and loses hopes of ever making it out alive, but Julia shouts at her to prove her point about how they will survive. They keep moving due to the stalker. They end up spotting a crashed plane in the distance, so they take shelter inside it, where they reminisce about Tom. Julia also shares how she first met Tom and fell in love with him. In the evening, Cassie sits outside the plane in a squatting position. The man tries to attack her from behind, but Julia strikes him before he lays a finer on Cassie. She stabs the man to death in order to prevent the lurking. When they look at his corpse the next day, they are horrified by what has happened to it and sense the dried land is a bigger threat to them. Julia stays in hopes of getting rescued, so she moves on with the kids. At one point, they stop to figure out the captain's coordinates on the map. Ben ends up drinking seawater from a puddle to quench his insatiable thirst, but Julia immediately pulls his head out of the water. Ben immediately falls sick to the point he can't walk any longer. So Cassie and Julia collect broken plastic chairs from the nearest area and build a small dome to treat Ben and protect themselves from the scorching heat. When the sun sets, Julia hears some noises. She goes out to take a look and becomes startled by an army of giant crabs coming their way. She wakes up the kids and runs ahead. They spot a few containers, inside which a few people are hiding. Upon seeing Julia and her kids, those people lock themselves inside the containers and refuse to let them in. When the giant crabs approach near, Julia and her kids climb a trailer, but a crab bites Julia's ankle during the act. Julia makes it to the roof, where she ties a torn piece of her scarf around the bite and faints. Meanwhile, the crabs claw their way into the trailers and viciously kill the remaining humans, despite them being weaponized. The next day, Julia wakes up to her kids gone missing. She becomes terribly hysterical to find them gone, but is immediately received to see them returning, who claim to have gone to look for food and weapons. They sit inside the trailer, where Ben loads the guns, while Julia tends to her ankle bite. When they realize their map is gone, Julia contacts the captain through the radio and finds out he's also been a victim of the sea creatures that have left him fatally injured. He also doesn't know how to explain his route, so he uses a flare gun to signal them. Ben spots the signal in the air and helps his family walk towards the submarine. They come to an elevated point, from where they can even see a tiny fragment of the submarine. Unfortunately, they end up in another narrow gap between the mountains.
That's so right! That's so... Allez, go! Go, go, go!
Where Cassie shouts at Julia to quit hoping they'll ever survive. During this, giant stones start sliding from the mountains and filling the narrow gaps. A few stones separate Julia from her kids. While Julia gets stuck behind, she begs Cassie to move forward with Ben and make it out alive. The siblings eventually get to the submarine, where the injured captain reveals he doesn't have long to live, and that the submarine can hold 3 people inside. Hearing this, Cassie runs back to rescue her mother, who is currently shooting at the army of crabs coming to devour her. Cassie extends her hand from above the stones and rescues Julia. While the crabs come after them, they successfully make it to the submarine and begin tightening the seatbelts. They witness a huge tidal wave heading their direction. The wave strikes the submarine so hard that the family faints, during which Julia's life with Tom flashes before her eyes. The film ends as they regain consciousness and find their submarine near a ruined city. I hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching and see you next time.